Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about the norma occipitalis of the skull bone. Now first of all, what is norma occipitalis? The posterior view of the skull is known as the norma occipitalis. Now over here three bones are mainly involved. The posterior part of the parietal bone, this one, squamous part of the occipital bone, and the mastoid part of the temporal bone. This is the mastoid process, or we can say the mastoid part of the temporal bone. It is nothing but the posterior part of your ear. Oh, behind your ear you can feel one bulging bone behind your ears. They are the mastoid process, or the mastoid part of the temporal bone. Three bones: parietal bone, occipital bone, and the temporal bones, mastoid part. Now the sutures over here. First of all, as you can see, the rhomboid suture is present. This one. Then the occipito-mastoid suture, which actually divides and which actually unites these two bones together. Occipito-mastoid suture. Then this is the parieto-mastoid suture. This one. And last is the sagittal suture, the posterior part of the sagittal suture. So means four sutures: rhomboid suture, sagittal suture, occipito-mastoid suture, and the parieto-mastoid suture. Now the other feature of the norma occipitalis bone is that first of all the lambda. This is the uniting point of the sagittal suture and the rhomboid suture. This point is known as the lambda, also known as the posterior fontanelle. Now next is the parietal foramen. Parietal foramen actually two foramens which are present around 2.5 to 4 centimeter in front of the lambda, and obeli only present just between these two parietal foramens. From the parietal foramens, emissary vein will pass, which will actually connect the extracranial part to the superior sagittal sinus of the intracranial part. Now next is the external occipital protuberance. Now this portion, as you can see with this, is the external occipital protuberance, and this is the part which marks the junction of the head and the neck. Means this is junction of the head and neck. Above this it is head, and below this is the neck begins. Now the most prominent part of this protuberance is known as the inion. This is the external occipital protuberance, and as you can see, this is the most prominent part of this is known as the inion. Now next is the superior knuckle line. As you can see over this are the superior knuckle lines. They are nothing but the curved bony ridges passing laterally from the external occipital protuberance. Now these also marks the junction of the head and neck. Now the highest knuckle line. Highest knuckle line actually present 1 centimeter above the superior knuckle line, and they are not always present in all individuals. Okay, they are present. They are actually the bony curves which are actually more curved than the superior knuckle lines, and they will begin from the upper part of the external occipital protuberance and curve towards the lateral side. Okay, lateral sides. Now next is the occipital point. Occipital point is actually a median point little above the inion. Just a little above the inion there is occipital point. This is the inion, and just above it is the occipital point. This is actually the farthest point from the glabella. What is glabella? Glabella is actually the center point between your both the eyebrows. Okay, between your both the eyebrows there is a little raised part of the frontal bone. The frontal bone actually forms your forehead, right? So in the center between the two eyebrows of yours there is one point known as the glabella. So this occipital point, which is present just above the inion, is the farthest point from the glabella. Mastoid foramen. Mastoid foramen is actually located in the mastoid part of the temporal bone and is present very near to the occipito-mastoid suture. Means somewhere over here near to this suture it will be present, and it mainly internally opens at the sigmoid sulcus. Just remember, it opens into the sigmoid sulcus, and the mastoid foramen actually transmit two things. Remember, emissary vein. Emissary vein, always remember, connects the extracranial part to the intracranial dural venous plexus. Okay, and the second thing is the meningeal branch of the occipital artery. So it passes two things. Just remember, there is only one foramen in this norma occipitalis part, that is the mastoid foramen, present just near this suture, occipito-mastoid suture, and passes two things: emissary vein and one artery known as the meningeal branch of the occipital artery. And this emissary vein of this mastoid foramen actually connects the extracranial part to the sigmoid sulcus. Now next is the interparietal bone, or we can say the Inca bone. Inca bone is nothing but occasionally present in some of the human beings. It is a very large triangular bone located at the apex of the, somewhere over here. It is actually at the apex of the occipital bone or the squamous part of the occipital bone. This is not a sutural or the accessory bone, but represents the membranous part of the occipital bone which has failed to fuse with the rest of the bones. So it actually, we can consider it as one extra bone, we can say, not accessory bone, but that part of, but actually it is a membranous part of the occipital bone which has failed to fuse with the other bone. So it is a membranous part of the occipital bone. So just remember once again, this is the lambda. 2.5 to 4 centimeter above this there will be parietal foramen, between them obelion. External occipital protuberance will be present over here. This is the external occipital protuberance, very important location of the in the skull. Then most prominent part of external occipital protuberance is the inion. Then from the external occipital protuberance, it actually demarcates the junction between the head and the neck. It demarcates head and the neck and denotes the junction between them. From the external occipital protuberance, two superior knuckle lines actually emerges in the lateral part. Now 1 centimeter above the superior knuckle line there will be highest knuckle lines, okay, which is present occasionally in some human beings. And then the occipital part, occipital point is present just above the inion, and actually marks the farthest distance from the glabella. Glabella is actually nothing but the point between the bony point of the frontal bone which is present in between your eyebrows. Then the mastoid foramen present near to this occipitomastoid suture, and it is present near to this suture, this mastoid foramen, and passes two things: emissary vein which connects to the sigmoid sulcus and the meningeal branch of the occipital artery. And the last is the Inca. It is nothing but the membranous part of the occipital bone which actually fails to fuse with the other bones. Attachment of the norma occipitalis bone. Now first of all, external occipital protuberance. Now just above this external occipital protuberance means just near to the above of this is there is origin of the trapezius muscle, and below this there will be attachment of the ligamentum nuke. Now the superior knuckle lines. Superior knuckle lines, the medial part, medial 1/3 of the superior knuckle line give origin to the trapezius muscle. And the rest of the part, the lateral part of this actually provides insertion of the splanus capitalis and sternocleidomastoid. So it give origin to the trapezius muscle but give insertion to the splanus capitalis and the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Now the highest knuckle line. The highest knuckle line is present actually 1 centimeter above the superior knuckle line in some human beings only, and it actually, if it is present, it will give attachment to two things: medially to the galea aponeurotica or the epicranial aponeurosis, it is the third layer of the scalp, and laterally to provide origin to the occipitalis part of the occipitofrontalis muscle, or the occipital belly of the occipitofrontalis muscle, okay, laterally. But if this highest knuckle line is not present in the particular human being, okay, then the attachment of the this epicranial aponeurosis and the occipitalis and the occipitofrontalis parts, occipitalis muscle, will be attached to the superior knuckle line. So if the highest knuckle line are present, it will give attachment to these two. But if not, the superior knuckle line will actually give the attachment to these two structures. So this was all about the norma occipitalis part of the skull. We'll talk about the norma lateralis, norma basalis and norma frontalis part in my next video. Hope you understood well. Thank you so much.